How long was Elvis with you? How long did you want to make a movie about Elvis?
You know, this is a curious thing because, I mean, the quick part of history is when we had cinema, I knew Elvis through the movies, you know, as a kid fan, then that fades away. But Elvis the subject, my wife reminded me that ever since she's known me, which is 30 years, it's been floating around. But it wasn't about being a biopic so much as just his, I guess it is ingrained in me, you know, like your first fanhood. But it's about the idea that being fascinated with America, 50, 60, 70. Elvis at the crossroads, pop culture in all 3 decades. And then I became obsessed really with what I think is one of the great films, which is, you know, Amadeus, which is not about Mozart, really, it's about jealousy, you know. So Shakespeare takes a subject and makes a bigger point. That was always my thing. I thought, how can I use Elvis's life to explore America? And that's when Colonel Tom Parker, never Colonel, never Tom, never Parker came into it.
Never Hanks.
From you say about that?
That's right, yeah.
That's what you say about
Never a Colonel, never a Tom, never a Parker.
Not even a Parker.
Not even a Parker.
Mm.
When did that come about? How did you know that was the...
Actually, I'll tell you what. I just remember, you see, part of the big idea is the tension between the show and the business, the sell and the creative, 2 great American things, you know, all of these cultures living together on top of each other, and new things are born in America in this period. Then you have the sell. That's a big thing, you know, roll up, big brand, put your name on it, that can be good in a good balance. But there was a time when I was feeling what should I put out there, that the sell has become everything. You know, put your name on it, braggadocio. And I thought, how could I subconsciously, and I just learned more and more about Parker, and I just thought, oh, the relationship there. And then as soon as you start to turn one page on Tom Parker, there is no end to that book.
What I'm curious about, were any of you concerned that you would never come back?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when
We were 6 days away from starting the first
Yeah.
day of principal.
Yeah.
And you know, with the guys know this now, but the scene where the Colonel is leading Elvis through the crowd and all the girls are kissing him, we were rehearsing it, and I think we had just, Polly Bennett, brilliant movement acting director, and really like, you know, you'll talk more about Polly, but getting these great realities of the girls and that. And Tom had just shaved his head, I think, and he was sitting over there, and he had a bandana on.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was about to bring Tom into it, and I'm pretty sure, in my memory, the AD says, look, I said, Tom's gone. He said, what's going on? He said, I think he's got that flu thing. Remember, no one knew what the hell it was.
We were told that it was just gonna, like a common flu, like everyone
And
had
then
it, don't worry about it.
all of a sudden, bang, all I remember is guys in hazmat suits, me on this stage, because we've got old grandparents, and
We all had to go into lockdown.
yeah,
for
first
like,
couple
for
of weeks,
like
and then
2
it was like
weeks.
Tom was, you know, how's Tom, and then he was posting the Vegemite things and all that.
There was that, yeah. That was after they released us from the hospital.
From Huska.
Yeah.
But what was it that convinced you, oh, we are certainly coming back? Was it a call from Toby at Warner's?
No,
who said,
no.
This isn't going away?
It was more that, at first it was a feeling of, well, there was no reality. No one understood anything. And actually, Tom and I see if you agree, Tom, we had a discussion, look, should we just put this off till February when this is all
Yeah.
under control? We actually thought that might happen. And then the silver lining was, the screenplay we read just before COVID still was front heavy. And then I sat down and I was talking a lot to Tom about it, and he left me with some thoughts. And I sort of, I think, cracked this contract between the Colonel and the way he tells it, and allowing us to say, well, it's the Colonel's telling. You remember? And I rang Tom, and he finally got back, and we were all, what are we going to do? And so it's going on in life, and I said, look, Tom, I really think, if not now, when? And he thought about it. You tell the story.
Well, there was this. Remember back when politicians were writing op-ed pages and said, by Memorial Day, this will be behind us. You know, by the 4th of July, COVID will be tamed. Well, hey, as of my recollection, that did not happen that way. So there was June 15th will be back, July 15th, maybe August 15th, and we got around towards the late summer. We talked on the phone. And we said, okay, if we really can't push it, let's try for late September, and we'll go on from there. the thing that shifted, that was the luxury that we had, was I think us turning. Look, I'll be selfish and just talk about my part in this, because as far as I'm concerned, the movie should be called Colonel Tom Parker. I mean, Elvis is horning in on my movie. That's the way I look at it. But we turned the Colonel into a man who had been saying no, 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 to a man who said yes. You want to fire me? Yes. You want to go around the world? Yes. You want to be? Yes, yes, yes. And then the other aspects of it coming into monkey around. So there's a bit of a divine, providence here that we got to sort of like refocus and rethink. And there's good news, because Austin had to work a few more months on his movements, his voice, his singing, all the other things. Yeah,
That's
what
all
you
I
adored,
wanted.
didn't you?
I tell you, really, dead right. But there was a really emotional moment when Ost decided to stay. And by the way, we were in a state that was in such a lockdown, I could never leave. I mean, I've never stayed in one place for more than probably 6 months since I was 18. 2 years I was in Queensland. There was a lot of controversy about it, but we lived a relatively normal life after that. It was quite a free world, very free. I mean, concerts, ballet and all that sort of thing. I don't know why I said ballet. But
You did go to the ballet. Yeah.
that's why I said it. But there was a moment when I thought the movie was going to go away. And Austin decided to stay, and I never, there was not a minute, he wasn't walking on the beach, and I think I went and said, look, we might have to push another 6 months, something like that. Yeah?
Yeah, I think at that point we'd already shut down for about 4 or 5 months. And you said we might shut down for another 6 and start in February. And at that point, I didn't want to stop the ball rolling of the preparation. And I felt that I'd lose momentum, because when force majeure was called on the film and everybody went back to the States, they booked me a plane ticket and I was about to head back, and then I thought, I'm gonna lose momentum. I need to stay. This is my time to have uninterrupted preparation where nobody's knocking at the door, nobody's telling me what to do, and it was this time where I could dig in deeper. And then that call happened where we were going to go till February. I would have.
And
just
then
stayed
and I felt that, and then Tom and I talked, and I think we all just came to a point of like, we've got to screw our courage to the sticking place and get this done. And Tom was like, well, do you think how long? And I thought, look, and you know what? When Tom came back,
We hit the ground running.
we were good. I mean, it was the smoothest, other than the initial scare, the smoothest, the most on-time shooting I've ever done, and the fact that no one else in the world was doing what we were doing, the sense of privilege and passion.
The film was such a lifeboat as well. It was, we all had our hearts in it. So we were in it so deep. It was like, how could we let this go?
The only thing I kind of miss is film club.
I miss that.
I miss movie club.
Well, we never got to see each other except when we were on the set, in the scenes. We were constantly kept apart.
Wow. So Austin comes in the room to audition. How do you know? Was it obvious right there and then? He was Elvis.
This is like asking us, a priest. About what happens in the confessional. Look, I can tell this now because it's out there, but I got this video of this young man. In my mind, I don't know why, it must be John Lennon's white piano. It was a white grand piano. You see my movies, they get a little heightened. But the piano, he's playing Unchained Melody, and I think it was a robe or something. But
it was a bathrobe.
It was a bathrobe, so I was right. Was the piano white?
It was black, but
okay.
It was a grand piano.
Details. It was a grand piano.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Good. Anyway, and he's in heaven, and there were these angels. No, anyway, he played Unchained, and he was crying, and later on I learned that actually his wonderful agent said, you've got to send that in. He sends it in, and I go, wow, that's got my attention. Then I did a reading, and I went, that's got my attention. He came up to my house in New York on his boots, walked up, and I thought, wow, this kid, obviously he's had some sort of similar life in the South. He's got such a sensitive Elvis. Anyway, I worked on him, and at that stage I realized that early Elvis will have to get a vocal performer, because you can't use the recordings. I mean, I've got a label with RCA, so I've heard so much Elvis that people haven't heard. I thought, I said, well, could you do an Elvis song? I don't sing. to my girlfriend. Ha ha ha. Is that a trick? You'd be
No, I really never sang for anybody.
If I showed you the video of him singing, what was it one that was it?
Well, the first one I came in and sang.
To try to get back to you.
Well, I sang "Don't Be Cruel." Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I sang.
Trying to get back to you.
You trying to get back to you?
Yeah.
I sang
And like I was
Sisters
just,
to
I'll be
Brothers.
really honest. I can say this for embarrassing, but I was like, is this really happening? I really did. I mean, is this really happening? And from that moment on, actually, it wasn't about, getting him to get the gig. Any actor comes in my door, I don't do auditions, I do workshops, because I get a lot out of it. I try and get them the gig. But it was actually about kind of testing robustness, just trying to start the training process to see would anything crack, Did anything crack?
Only barely.
Time, space,
Well, no, I know,
continuum.
he did crack.
Yeah.
He cracked when we were on the set, and we've been rehearsing, and there's a scene, and this is one of my favourite scenes, where Elvis has to use all the instruments and inspire them all to do a new version of That's All Right Mama, and we had a playback tape we worked on for 6 months, and it was all going to be to tape, and then we're doing it, I'm going, this just is not, I don't go like, this isn't working, I said, there's something missing here. I said, look. These are all musicians here. All the things have been muted. What if we unmute it and you just do it for real? And he never.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes.
He never
in
says
the
no.
movie is
He's
that.
never
I
like
love that.
fearful. I never see the fear. I got 3 actors here. He said, they watch this, and he goes and says, look, I could see him hyperventilating. Listen. I promise, if it's garbage, I'll throw it away. We'll look at it and then we'll throw it away. That's one of the favourites.
Actually, what about I know when you cracked. What about when you got hit in the head?
Yeah, that's when
Well, I
he-
physically cracked
When
myself.
he physically
yeah.
cracked,
He
you
didn't
got
crack,
hit in
his
the
head got cracked.
You got
My
his
head
head got
got
cracked
cracked.
open
Yeah.
with the throwing of the guitar.
During the montage, the Burning Love montage, Elvis used to do this thing where he'd stand on stage and throw the guitar backwards, and Charlie Hodge would catch
We
it.
catch it.
And but they put we were changing jumpsuits rapidly, and I put one on I never tried on. I never tried the cape on before. It was the heaviest cape. And as I brought the guitar forward, the cape came around and caught the guitar. So when I went to throw it back, and I'm trying to launch this guitar, it caught the cape. So I tilted the guitar and smashed my face
Did you have to
with
get
this guitar.
stitches?
I did have to get stitches. Yeah. And then threw the guitar. He caught it. We kept going. I was seeing stars. Finished the rest of the song, and I go, "Let's do another one." And I see Baz come up, concerned, and he looks at me so tenderly, and he goes, I think we need to stop." And brings me over to the side and goes, "You're bleeding." And sure enough, I had stitches that night.
It was like being with
But it was a
Muhammad in a fight.
It was pretty epic. It's a good scar to have, I think.
That's right.
You
It's a
think
good
it's scar?
story.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Can you tell me about when Olivia walked into the room? How'd you know it was Priscilla?
Actually-
I mean, she looks.
Yeah, you know what? I will tell you, it was a much coveted role. And my dear friend Craig Pearce, who I've written many things with, had done a show called Will on William Shakespeare. And he talked about this great Aussie actor. Now, I looked methodically, I did a methodical process. But actually from the thing about Priscilla is that he meets her when she's, young. And it's a very naive relationship, and I talked to Priscilla about it, and I think the whole thing there is that at that stage Elvis, everyone's got an agenda. He's lonely, it's just like in the scene, but she has to go from this kind of youth to a self evolution where she becomes her own person, and in a way he becomes the child and she's the adult. And that's what Livy did in the reads that she did. I had to do it by remote, but the reads were always, she could do both. She could track the journey in but a few primary scenes. They were so good that the night before we were going to shoot another scene, we actually wrote the scene in the car, the night before. And I said,
It
look,
wasn't going to be in the movie.
I know we're shooting this thing, but can we get 2 cars?
Yeah.
Well, I also wanted to use that amazing Mercedes. But hey.
He was all about the Mercedes.
No, but seriously, I'd heard the story. The dialogue in the scene where he says, "I'm almost 40 and no one remembering." That's a fact. That's what had been told. And I said, we've got to have it in there. And also, we've got to show that she, in the end, the friendship and there's a love there between them, and that she was there for him right through to the end, you know. So I'm very thankful that somehow occasionally one does something that doesn't seem to make sense. Like we dumped one scene and did that. And I'm really thankful for that scene and for what you guys did. Actually,
I remember when you sent me Olivia's tape, when you said, I think I found Priscilla, and watching it, I was just so blown away, because it's a really difficult thing to be able to have the innocence of youth and that vitality, and then to be able to transition from that scene to some of the later scenes where you have this eternal wisdom and incredible depth. It was you just had such a dynamic range. It was amazing to witness.